training chief. And again, we're going to be talking about promotional assessment center preparation. What I want to say is we've done a query on the budget for the fire department and for the city of Savannah. We know a couple of things for the upcoming promotional assessment center. One is they have budgeted no monies, nor have they put out an RFP to modify the standing assessment center preparation. So what we have is the expectation that they're going to use the same 8 dimensions in the assessment center that they have in the last 2 times. Most likely the same style, can't guarantee it, but same style of assessment center, which consisted last time of an inbox, a fireground scenario, and a written evaluation. Well, part of that is every time during those, they're not just looking to see if you run a good fireground. People put the most importance on the fireground, but what they're looking is they evaluate you on each of these 8 dimensions on every single part of the assessment center. Your perception, your decisiveness, your judgment, your oral communication skills, written communication skills, leadership skills, organizational skills, and interpersonal skills. That's the skills that retired training chief Al Wright and the fire chief came up with that they were seeking in an up-and-coming fire officer. So that's how we evaluate, by we I mean the Bureau and the selection committee, what the next fire officer, either captain or master firefighter, will be. That's what they judge as the standards. So again, when you're on the fire scene, utilize those skills, make command decisions, show leadership. Maybe you use your best judgment to come to a decision on why you went and performed vertical vent or what tactics you employed. But remember, those are the dimensions you're being judged on, whether it's written or oral. So with that, as we go through some of the possible scenarios in an assessment center, relate them back to these 8 dimensions when you kind of plan in your head what you'll do. And after we go through the PowerPoint, we're going to break out and we have a couple fire captains in the other room, which will go over a simulated inbox, and the rest of us will stay in here and we'll do a couple of fire ground scenarios. So with that, all right, and again, in no way does this cover all of the possibilities. Please prepare yourself as much as possible for your assessment center. This is just one of the tools in the box. Again, this isn't the limiting factor, but some of the things, and the things we've seen in the last couple of assessment centers, a written interview, memo style form, tactical scenario, often referred to as your fire scene or fire ground. And I want to say that people put the biggest emphasis in their preparation for the assessment center on the fire ground. It actually carries the least value. The most value comes from your inbox scenario, because the inbox takes all of these skills and has the most weight on them. And especially, it's one of the scenes when you can show your interpersonal skills, when you look at somebody, how much training they did for the past year, and you sit down and give them a guide. So I want to say, don't overdo it on the tactical scenario and under-prepare for the other aspects. Oral interview, oral presentation, employee counseling session, and an inbox. What we do, or traditionally have done, is the employee counseling session and the inbox are all in one. All right, written interview or a memo. I want everybody to please review memo format. We have plenty of people that write a letter, Dear Chief, and it's not in memo format. Part of what they're doing is evaluating your ability to take the directions and roll them into your response. So one thing you should be familiar with is styles. They may say Chicago style, APA style, some semblance of review prior to you sitting down to utilizing this written format would be having a familiarization of the expectations they may have. There is going to be resources there, dictionaries, thesaurus, things that you can utilize. Don't try and wow them with big words if you're not really sure how to spell it. You got to remember it's timed. But you need to have a baseline quickly from the question they ask and then move on. I know the situation that I tested on was, what have you done in the past year to prepare yourself to become a company officer? I discussed college degree and the fire officer certification. Very simple. Tell them what you're going to tell them. What I did was I studied, I finished my college degree, and I finished my fire officer certifications. Then tell them what you did. I took these certain courses, finished my degree. I went to the Georgia Fire Training Center to take my certification classes. Then lastly, wrap it up how that prepared you to be a quality fire officer. But don't go too deep. Remember the basics. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. Take the time to rewrite it. Penmanship and reviewing the dictionary and thesaurus to make sure you have proper spelling. Those are very fundamental, but it's one of the things they expect a company officer to do is be able to have good written communication skills. And especially more and more as we go through legal requirements and they review our firehouse run entries, and part of that is how people enter their runs. That stuff gets chewed up in court. So remember, prepare because they're evaluating you on that. Sample memo. All right, tactical scene scenario. This slide's a little bit busy, but one of the things they're going to do is evaluate you on these dimensions. Don't expect them to know the Savannah Fire Way. Traditionally, you don't talk to Savannah Fire. What you do is you say, I would do this, this, and this. I recommend giving a size up. I would give a size up, and it would be something to this effect, using the idea method, identify, describe, establish, and action mode. I have a 2-story wood frame residential structure, heavy smoke and flame from Division 2. I'll be establishing 34th Street Command. I'll be in offensive mode, laying a supply line, flagging out hose in preparation for an offensive attack. You decide what's best, but remember, they're not going to know jargon, Savannah Fire jargon, they're not going to know slang. Also, the likelihood of it being interactive is very low, but we're preparing you for possibilities. So there sometimes could be, in certain assessment centers, where somebody gives feedback. Copy that, and the dimensions change. The smoke gets heavier, the smoke gets worse, the smoke gets better. That's an interactive scenario, but because of the subjectivity and objectivity demands in the fire service and with lawsuits, that style is going away. They're becoming picture, slide, it rotates. You work your way from start to finish what you would do. Again, what you would do, whether it's called for a second alarm, request PIO, PD, whatever it is, what you would do, you would justify, then you wrap up the scene. And do it in Savannah Fire way, because they have our policies. Whether that's the way you break down the fire ground, terminate command, release the fire ground, do an all bar, things of that nature. But traditionally the slides will not change. Non-interactive and the mini tactical. That's pretty rare, a mini tactical, but it is something that other assessment centers in Brunswick and the like have used. And that would be where you're planning to go to a structure fire, in this example, and you get in an accident on the way there. So all of a sudden they threw a mini tactical within the larger, because they want to see, they want to evaluate you. Real quick, you didn't expect that. On your perception, your decisiveness, your judgment, what do you do? Now we know we have a policy in Savannah Fire, which is really rare, that speaks to that. What you can do with regard to getting in an accident on the way. We actually have a policy that says you can leave a member. If the civilian is not hurt, if any of the firefighters are not hurt, you can leave a member with that while you call for a second battalion chief to come investigate the scene. But this is one of the examples used is that really displays maybe there's already an incident commander on scene that says no smoke visible, nothing visible, something to that effect, nothing showing. So what you're going to do is you're going to stay, and they want to check to see are you familiar with city and fire department policy. Check the condition of the firefighters and people, request PD for traffic control, fire and EMS. Were they treated? And are you able to walk your members and the civilians through? Remember, you got to request PD. Are you going to request a labor representative, somebody from the union? As you got to remember, the driver's going to be questioned. All of that could lead to possible discipline, and those are the rights of the employee. So we want to make sure that you have a command presence at something that was unexpected. Oral presentation and an interview. We have not done interviews in the last couple of times. Doesn't mean we won't. They could sit down and say, tell me why you think you are deserving of a fire captain job. Or it could be an interview of tell me something non-fire department related that you bring to the table as a skill set. Remember, something like this, it's a possibility. One of the things we recommend you do is write an elevator speech, a couple of minutes long, touching upon your value, your worth to the organization, and how you will bring the organization forward. Say it in the mirror a couple of times, practice it, jot down some notes. Video yourself, watch it back, and then continually critique yourself so that you can put your best foot forward with regard to movement through your career. Please try not to write everything. If you have a few minutes to prepare, they tell you you're going to speak on this topic, a few notes off to the side, you think about what you want to speak on, and you go from there. Or else, you run the risk of trying to read what you wrote. That doesn't speak well to your oral communication skills, your ability to have a command, presence, lead, all of that. Speak from your notes and speak from your perspective. Counseling session. For example, they want to know, did you take the issue? Did you use possibly the lowest level discipline necessary to remedy the situation? So did you have good interpersonal skills? Did you have a good understanding of the policies? Did you practice good judgment? Let's say you have a member that every time you ride in charge in the back seat doesn't wear their seatbelt. Maybe the first instance is a right there immediate correction. You turn back. Hey, Chris, I need you to make sure when we're on the way to Billy's mom's house that you wear your seatbelt. Always. I expect every time we're in the truck that you wear your seatbelt. So the expectation is that is an immediate coaching. That's a corrective action. Hopefully you don't ever have to address it again. Now, if that continues, that kind of behavior continues, what you do is you have to take it to the next level. And safety is a very serious issue, especially with regard to seatbelt policy. So an infraction like that, you may decide to skip a level and go right to written or pass it up to the battalion chief. Know your disciplinary policies, know the Savannah fire policies and the expectations, especially when it comes to risk management. But when you make a decision, no matter what it is, did you use your best judgment and be able to justify what you did? The in-basket exercise scenario. Traditionally, Savannah Fire, what we've done is we've rolled most of the skill sets into this. The interview, the justification, the interpersonal skills are rolled up into the in-basket. Traditionally, it's about a 30-minute exercise. You have some review time. You'll have an employee issue, somebody stole something, possibly, there's a complaint. All of those things come to light. But what you're going to need to do is they're going to want to see your decisiveness, when you prioritize something, your organizational skills, your leadership skills, and how you take those dimensions, not only those weight dimensions, but you put them into this in-basket to make sure that you can move throughout the day of a company officer. So we have 9 issues here. We're going to really quickly go through these. Battalion inspection at 11. Firefighter assigned to your crew approaches you and informs you that he cannot locate his gloves. Chief calls to say there's been a complaint about the way your medics were driving. There's a message from Mr. Jones regarding fire prevention inspection. The engineer approaches you and says there's a nail on the inside rear tire. A paramedic from your crew approaches and says he's too hungover to work. You have a message to call Mrs. Smith, and you're scheduled to have a ride along from 8 to 1700 and a school tour is scheduled. We're not going to break all these down, but I may be different than the example. Because I may say the first priority I have to deal with is the possibility that I have an employee at work under the influence who drove him or herself to work and is now in a capacity to either operate the apparatus or provide life-saving skills. So I may prioritize that as number one. Somebody else may say the nail in the tire is number one because that affects our response capabilities. Whatever it is, those